Morbid facts. In 2010, the body of Argentinian model Joana Casas was found just before her 20th birthday. She had been shot twice in the head and was left in a field. Her former boyfriend was soon convicted of the murder and sentenced to 13 years in prison. 3 years later, while still in prison, the man ended up falling in love with Joana's twin sister Edith. Despite her parents intervening, Edith went on to marry her twin sister's murderer. In 2008, a Kansas man named Corey McFerrin called 911 claiming there was something wrong with his girlfriend. When authorities arrived, they were horrified to find that his 35-year-old girlfriend had been sitting on the toilet for at least 2 years. Her skin had grown around the toilet seat and had to be surgically removed at the hospital. Her boyfriend claimed that because of her troubled childhood, she felt safe in the bathroom and never left. When a 20-year-old Rod Serling was serving in World War II, he watched as his best friend was killed by a falling crate of food. Realizing the irony and unpredictability of life and death, this experience would later inspire him to create the Twilight Zone. Male chicks are considered to be virtually useless to the egg industry, so they're either suffocated in large garbage bags or are shoveled into a high-speed grinder to be torn apart. Kissing a baby on the ear can make it go deaf due to a condition known as cochlear ear kiss injury. Indonesian villager Akbar Salubira went missing in 2017 after setting off for harvest. His remains were found 2 days later inside the body of a reticulated python. It was the first confirmed case of a snake swallowing a fully grown adult human being. Morbid facts that you didn't know about the Holocaust. It's said that Hitler's worst enemies were kept at Mauthausen concentration camp, where prisoners were forced to carry 100-pound stones up this structure known as the Stairs of Death. Exhausted prisoners would often collapse and drop their loads, creating a horrific domino effect. In the 1980s, a family owned a ceramic factory in California, but it was uncovered as an illegal crematorium when a passerby recognized the smell of burning bodies from his time at Auschwitz. SS leader Heinrich Himmler ordered for the construction of the gas chambers when he was concerned about what psychological impacts that shooting people would leave on his men. During World War II, future President Dwight Eisenhower predicted that people would try to deny that the Holocaust ever happened. So he ordered his men to take as many graphic photos as possible to prevent this from happening. Morbid facts that you didn't know about 9/11. After the first plane hit the North Tower, people in the South Tower wanted to leave, but were advised by an announcement to stay at their seats. Some tried to leave anyway, but were turned back by security at the exits. More than 600 people ended up dying when the tower went down. Afghan resistance leader Ahmad Shah Massoud warned about a major terrorist attack that was about to happen on U.S. soil. He ended up being assassinated just 2 days before 9/11. Many 9/11 rescue dogs started becoming depressed because they weren't finding any live bodies. Rescue workers had to constantly bury themselves to trick the dogs into thinking they actually saved somebody. Tanya Head was a well-known 9/11 survivor who faked being in the South Tower during the attacks. She served as president of the WTC Survivors Network for years before people found out that she wasn't even in the country on 9/11. Morbid facts. In 1984, comedian Tommy Cooper died of a heart attack while performing live on stage. Thinking it was all part of the show, the audience continued to laugh and clap as the man was gasping for air. In 1300 BC, Egyptian King Meneptah defeated the Libyans in battle. To prove of his triumph, he brought back 6,000 tan bananas that he cut off of opposing soldiers. When a very tall man dies and can't afford a custom coffin, the undertaker will often chop off his feet and place them beside his legs. The family doesn't notice because only the top half of the coffin is open during the funeral. In 2015, a woman claimed that she could smell Parkinson's disease. To test this, doctors gave her 12 shirts to smell and 6 of them were from Parkinson's patients. She correctly identified the 6 shirts but also chose one from the control group. 8 months later, that person was diagnosed with Parkinson's. Author of Frankenstein, Mary Shelley, is said to have lost her virginity on top of her mother's grave. She also kept her dead husband's heart and carried it around for 30 years until her death in 1851. In North Korea, viewing or selling porn is strictly forbidden and is said to be punishable by death. If you win the lottery, you're about 20 times more likely to be murdered than the average person. In 2016, a seemingly abandoned yacht drifted towards some fishermen off the coast of the Philippines. But when they boarded the ship, they found the mummified remains of a German man who had been missing for 7 years. To this day, the man's cause of death remains a mystery. In 2009, actor Dean Winters suffered from a bacterial infection and died in the ambulance but was revived. After recovering, he developed gangrene and had multiple amputations and skin grafts. He is now better known for playing Mayhem in Allstate insurance commercials. Janis Joplin changed her will just 2 days before dying at the age of 27. She gave her estate to her parents and gave additional cash to her siblings. She even set aside $2,500 for her friends to throw a party in her honor and to, quote, get blasted after I'm gone. Cat burning was a form of entertainment in France prior to the 1800s. People would gather cats in a net and burn them over a bonfire while they laughed and cheered. This was done mainly because cats were associated with witchcraft and were burned as symbols of the devil. Female mummies in ancient Egypt were always more decomposed than their male counterparts. Researchers would later discover that this was because male bodies were embalmed a lot sooner than female bodies. Unlike male bodies, female bodies were kept at the family home until they started to decompose. The only reason this was done was to prevent the embalmers from getting weird with the bodies. Children who are victims of hot car deaths are often found with large portions of their hair ripped out. The only reason dogs love squeaky toys is because they sound like little animals dying. Every unborn baby grows a mustache in the womb, which then spreads to cover the entire body. The baby then eats this fine hair called lanugo, then excretes it after birth with their first bowel movement. These are some morbid facts that you didn't know about the Lincoln assassination. Lincoln's bodyguard was an alcoholic who had previously gotten in trouble for drinking on the job. He wasn't at his post to protect Lincoln that night because he was next door drinking at the Star Saloon, the same saloon where John Wilkes Booth was drinking to build up the courage to assassinate the president. The chair that Lincoln was shot in still has his bloodstains on it. John Wilkes Booth also planned on assassinating Ulysses S. Grant along with Lincoln, but he didn't attend the play because his wife was on bad terms with Lincoln's wife at the time. Instead, the other man in Lincoln's balcony was military officer Henry Rathbone. After the assassination, he was overwhelmed with guilt for the rest of his life for not preventing it. He slowly went mad and eventually stabbed his wife to death before he was committed to a mental asylum for the rest of his life. Two murderers can be seen in the background of Mark Jackson's Hoops basketball card from 1990. The Menendez brothers had murdered their parents and bought courtside tickets with their parents' money before they were convicted. In 1949, 12-year-old Charles Cohen hid inside of a closet while a mass murderer shot and killed his whole family. Nearly 70 years later, his granddaughter would survive the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting by hiding in a closet. These are some morbid facts that you didn't know about the Columbine massacre. This Columbine class of '99 photo was taken just a few months before the shooting. In the top left corner, shooters Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold can be seen making shooting gestures at the camera while wearing sunglasses. This is a game of hangman that a group of students played while they were locked in their classroom during the shooting. While being at one mass shooting is horrifying and unlucky enough, Regina Rode was at 2 of them. 8 years after surviving Columbine, she was a student at Virginia Tech when 32 people were killed. On the day of the shooting, 2 10-kilogram bombs were planted in the school cafeteria right before lunch. Luckily, the bombs failed to detonate, otherwise all 488 students in the cafeteria at the time could have died. These melted chairs were the result of Dylan Klebold trying to set off one of those bombs with a Molotov cocktail. Ridiculous deaths. On New Year's Eve in 2011, a suicide bomber planned on blowing up Moscow's crowded Red Square with a mobile phone bomb. But her plan failed when she received a spam text wishing her a Happy New Year. This caused the bomb to go off while she was still at the safe house, and she was the only fatality. The Great Whiskey Fire of Dublin killed 13 people in 1875, but none of them died as a result of smoke inhalation or burns. All victims died of alcohol poisoning as a result of drinking the free whiskey. In 1871, Ohio lawyer Clement Vallandigham was defending a client who was charged with murder. While showing the court how the victim might have accidentally shot himself, Clement accidentally shot himself. He won the case, but he died. Weird nature facts. While it looks like something from Star Wars, the Valais blacknose is a species of domestic sheep found in Switzerland. They're known for their shaggy coats, spiral horns, and pitch black faces. A Russian helicopter discovered this strange giant crater in Siberian permafrost. Some scientists say it's a new type of sinkhole, but its true origins remain a mystery. There's a species of octopus that cares for her eggs for 53 months without eating, then dies. This is the longest brooding period of any known animal species. Farmers in Botswana have started painting faces on their cows' butts to prevent lions from sneaking up on them. The New Mexico whiptail is a species of lizard that is 100% female. Nicknamed the lesbian lizards, they still mate with each other to stimulate egg growth without transferring genetics. Some species of tarantulas keep tiny frogs as pets. The frog is protected from predators, and in return, the tarantula's burrow is protected from pests that are too small for the spider to deal with. Cats were likely domesticated by humans through the same process. Farmers who own ostrich farms often struggle with breeding. This is because ostriches are sometimes more attracted to humans than other ostriches. Cheetahs are so closely related that you can freely transplant organs between each member of the species without immunosuppression. In 1970, Fraser the lion was adopted by a safari in Florida at the age of 18, which is the human equivalent to the age of 80. He was blind, toothless, and could barely walk, but was still responsible for the births of 35 cubs at the park. Weird movie facts. Before filming Interstellar, Christopher Nolan planted 500 acres of corn just for the movie because he didn't want to use CGI. After filming, he sold all the corn and made back profit for the budget. In The Matrix, which came out in 1999, Neo's passport expires on September 11th, 2001. Real skeletons were used in the filming of Poltergeist because it was cheaper than making prop ones. The actress wasn't told they were real until after the shooting finished. This was the original design of Voldemort, which many find far more terrifying than what they went with. The Italian version of Moana is called Oceania because there was already a famous porn star named Moana in Italy. In one of the scenes of The Iron Giant, you can see a moving star near the moon. This is because the movie is set in 1957, the same year that the first satellite Sputnik was launched into orbit. Morbid facts that you didn't know about the Titanic. On the same day that the ship sank, there was a lifeboat training drill scheduled that was canceled last minute by the captain. If the drill took place, it's estimated that hundreds more lives would have been saved. But instead, the process was complete chaos and many boats left when they weren't even at full or even half capacity. A boy named Frank Goldsmith Jr. survived the sinking, then moved into a home near Tiger Stadium in Detroit. But he never took his boys to a ball game because the cheers of the crowd reminded him of the screaming of the passengers on the Titanic. Many survivors, however, claim that hearing all the screams wasn't even the worst part. The only thing creepier was the fact that all the screaming stopped around the same moment and was followed by complete silence. Weird history facts. In 1985, Professor of Oceanography Robert Ballard announced a mission to find the Titanic. But it was really a cover story for a classified mission to find lost nuclear submarines. But the team finished early, so they decided to spend the extra time searching for the Titanic and ended up actually finding it. After trick photography was developed in 1856, headless portraits became a trend during the Victorian era. In ancient Egypt, servants were smeared with honey to attract flies away from the pharaoh. During medieval times, it was common to have 2 sleeps per night. You would sleep for 4 to 5 hours, wake up for about 2 hours, then sleep for another 3 to 4. Scientists have suggested that we may have evolved this way to tend to the fire in order to keep us warm and safe. The ancient Romans didn't have toothpaste or toothbrushes, but they had perfect teeth because their diets were so low in sugar. The Guinness Book of World Records recognizes the 1927 presidential election of Liberia as the most fraudulent in history. Although there were only 15,000 registered voters in Liberia at the time, Charles D.B. King received 234,000 and won the election. Incest was encouraged in ancient Egypt, as with many aristocracies, to keep the bloodline pure. Moreover, if they were twins and one was a boy and one was a girl, they were married at birth because it was assumed that they must have banged in the womb. Weird crime facts. In 2017, a woman named Glenna Durham killed her husband after shooting him 5 times. Soon afterwards, the couple's pet African gray parrot started repeating the words, "Don't effing shoot." It was assumed that these were the husband's last words, and the woman was eventually found guilty of first-degree murder. Serial killer Dennis Rader, aka the BTK Killer, used to install security systems for homeowners. Many of his clients wanted the security systems to keep the BTK Killer from ever entering their homes, unaware that he was the one installing them. In 2015, a man broke into a ranch in Nova Scotia and quite literally made himself at home. He fed the cats and horses, did laundry, took a shower, and used the homeowner's toothbrush. He even wrote in their diary and was watching TV on the couch when they came home. D.B. Cooper's successful plane hijacking in 1971 was followed by dozens of copycats. One such copycat was Vietnam War veteran and paratrooper Rob Dolan Heedy. He successfully extorted $200,000 and jumped out of the plane near Washoe Lake, Nevada. He would have gotten away with it, but police were able to find his car parked near the lake. What gave it away was a bumper sticker of the United States Parachute Association. In 2002, 3 Catholic nuns from Tennessee managed to break into a United States nuclear missile launch facility. As an anti-war protest, they vandalized the entire facility and drew crosses on the silo with their own blood. Nuclear weapons experts called it the biggest security breach in the history of the nation's atomic complex. These are some of the craziest war tactics that actually worked. Hannibal of Carthage was famous for intimidating his Roman enemies through the use of war elephants. But the Romans eventually learned that elephants are afraid of squealing pigs. So they would lather pigs in tar and set them on fire, sending the enemy elephants fleeing in horror. A Chinese general with only 100 men once had to defend a town against 150,000 troops. So he told his men to hide, left the gates open, and sat on the walls playing a lute. Certain that it was a trap, the opposing general ordered a full retreat. One of the reasons why the plague was spread to Europe was because the Mongols literally sent it there. When they were trying to conquer the city of Kaffa, they would catapult infected bodies over the city walls. This was also one of the first historical accounts of biological warfare. Weird space facts. In the 1880s, the director of the Harvard Observatory was frustrated with his staff and would say, quote, "My Scottish maid could do better." So to jokingly prove a point, he hired his Scottish maid. Williamina Fleming proceeded to lead a team for decades, classified tens of thousands of stars, and discovered the Horsehead Nebula. Astronauts lose about 1% of their bone mass each month, most of which is excreted through their urine. So essentially, astronauts slowly pee their skeletons out. Scientists believe there's a 9th planet in our solar system that's about 10 times larger than Earth. They haven't been able to locate it yet, but they know it's there due to its gravitational effects on other objects. Morbidly wholesome. In 2016, Mark Hamill paid a visit to a dying Star Wars fan in the hospital. He then proceeded to answer every question as Luke Skywalker, since the fan could no longer distinguish between reality and fiction. In 1979, Elvita Adams attempted suicide by jumping off the Empire State Building. She jumped from the 86th floor but was suddenly blown back to the 85th floor due to a sudden gust of strong wind. A man named Bill Hast injected himself with snake venom for several years to build up his immunities. He survived nearly 200 venomous snake bites, donated his blood to snake bite victims, and lived to the age of 100. Remember this kid? He was saved by a dog when his parents left him in a garbage bin to die with his umbilical cord still attached. This is what he looks like now. Eitzaz Hassan was only 15 years old when he tackled a suicide bomber who tried entering his school. Sadly, he was killed but succeeded in saving hundreds of his fellow schoolmates. A Brazilian police officer was saved when his Nokia in his back pocket stopped a bullet that was fired at him. In 2015, a Texas father saved his son's life when doctors wrongly declared him brain dead and wanted to take him off life support. He barricaded himself in the hospital with a gun and had a 3-hour standoff with a SWAT team until his son squeezed his hand. The sun went on to have a full recovery. Forgotten catastrophes. The Great Kanto earthquake of 1923 shook Japan with so much intensity that it caused the formation of a deadly phenomenon known as a fire tornado. Horrified witnesses could do nothing to save themselves since it got so hot that their shoes melted to the pavement. The fire soon ripped through the center of Tokyo, incinerating 40,000 people in about 3 minutes. The Burnton Park disaster was a human crush that occurred in 1946 at the Burnton Park football stadium in England. Overcrowding led to the deaths of 33 people and injuries to hundreds more. The dead bodies were then left covered on the sidelines and the game was restarted about 30 minutes later. Afterwards, many players said they were sickened by the fact that the game was allowed to continue.